and welcome to another episode of Coin Talks with the Hallenbecks. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Tom Hallenbeck.
And we're here in Colorado Springs, Colorado at the shop Hallenbeck Coin Gallery.
Yeah, we're just 2 blocks away from the American Numismatic Association, the headquarters of the A&A.
Today, we want to talk to you about U.S. paper money.
Yeah, we want to get an overview of what U.S. paper money is and kind of tell about, is it original? Is it a replica? Kind of some of the basics on U.S. currency.
So let's start going way back in time to the oldest U.S. paper money.
Well, the first paper money is continental currency. And continental currency was issued by quite often the individual states, sometimes in New Jersey, Georgia, Virginia, some of the states they issued them. And also there are some that are just, in the case of this, the United States or the Bank of America.
So what's the significance of the size here, and how much was this valued at the time? This one here says State of Massachusetts and $5.
Yeah, that's and then of course this one's canceled. You can see the hole in it. But that was worth $5, and it was issued by the individual state. I'm not sure why they were this size, but they're pretty much always very close to this size.
Okay, and really $5 back then was a lot more. You can see that the serial numbers were hand signed, so the ink has faded over time to be a light brown compared to the rest of the note.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of these in Colorado. They're more of an East Coast thing, but we still see them. When I was a kid, these things used to be $10-20, and you could buy these things all the time. Now add a zero on top of that, and that's more realistic for average ones. And some of these are very rare and worth thousands of dollars. Quite often they have multiple colors in there. This is printed by Hall & Sellers. You get some really great signatures sometimes on these. Sometimes you'll get Ben Franklin and a lot of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So these are very collectible and very popular.
So we said the hole there means it's canceled. Is an uncanceled note more valuable?
Not always. You know, that's one of the things. Sometimes they're canceled, sometimes they're not. I would say just like coins, condition, where they were made, who signed them in the case of currency. There's lots of different things, but there's are they original, have been repaired. We do see a fair amount of replicas of these, it's kind of a gray area. It's like counterfeit ancient coins. No one really cared because they weren't worth much back in the day, and now as they become more valuable, most of the counterfeits are pretty easy to see. The wrong kind of paper. These were made out of a fiber paper. Quite often, if you hold them and reflect them like this, there are little bits of mica in there, and that was one of the counterfeit detection things that they used back when they produced the paper almost 240 years ago. Awesome.
Let's move on here to U.S. Confederate money.
Yeah, we see a lot of Confederate currencies. Of course, the Confederacy. There was still the United States, and then the Confederacy split off, and they started making their own currency. Ones, twos, fives, tens, 20s, 50s, hundreds, 500s, and thousands. And quite often these are pretty cool notes and very affordable, $10, $20, $30, up to, depending on the variety, could be in the thousands of dollars also.
The easiest way to tell genuines from fakes of these is first the texture of the paper. The genuine one should be really like a thin tissue paper, really thin. Let's see how it's floating like that. Then second, we look at the serial number and signatures. Because they were both also hand-signed, signatures and serial numbers, the ink would have faded from the rest of the page. And what's the other easy one to check?
Well, there's a little word quite often in the back of these called facsimile. Facsimile means copy.
So that's the easiest one, like this one right here. Looking at the back corner, sometimes they'll say, reprinted in the US, or even one like this, it's got an advertisement on the back, not worth anything as a replica.
No, and a lot of the advertisements are actually after the Confederacy obviously did not win the war. They did not redeem these, and they were just paper at the time. So as a novelty, a lot of the companies would put an advertisement stamp on there, an auto company or whoever, and they would give them out as freebies. So same things. When I was a kid, you could go to junk boxes and buy these things for 50 cents a dollar. Now they're worth significantly more. But they're fun notes to collect.
A fun story we have about them is that after the war, when they weren't worth anything, people would shove them between the walls as housing insulation.
Yeah, they'd use them for all kinds of things. My dad, who's in his almost 90 now. He tells a story that he would go to a coin show and there were trunks of these things around. You could buy the whole trunk for just a few $100s, and there were thousands of them in there. But what did you do with them? He didn't know what to do with them. What do you do with 500 or 1,000 or several thousand of the same ones? And there wasn't telemarketing and things like that at the time, so he would pass on those things. Now you look back and go, maybe you should have bought those.
But that tells a little bit about their value as well. Now let's move on to some of these really beautiful notes here.
Yeah, as you get to some of the older U.S. currency, the currency was originally started for the federal, what we call the greenbacks, was started about the time of the Civil War. So because the Confederacy is making these the Confederate notes to finance their portion of the war, the North needed the same thing, and they were making greenbacks starting in the 1860s. I don't have any early ones right here in front of us, but they made some beautiful notes with all kinds of interesting characters on them. And like this is a $10 note from 1880. And they made some gorgeous, gorgeous notes.
Mm-hmm. What about this one here that has a gold seal in this large size?
Yeah, so they made, they made a whole series of notes. There's Federal Reserve notes, which are more new, recent notes. They made gold certificates. They made silver certificates. They made national bank notes. They made a whole series of different types of notes. And this one that Hannah is holding is a gold certificate.
So does that mean that the value of this would have been redeemable for gold back in the day?
Exactly. You could go into a bank and demand $10. There's a $10 gold note. You could demand $10 of gold, and they would have to give you a $10 gold piece or 2 5s or whatever. But that was the law. The same thing with the silver certificates. You could go in, and a silver certificate was redeemable in silver. So you had a $1 silver certificate. You can go in, put it on the counter, and they were supposed to give you 1 silver dollar, or the same thing, 4 quarters, 10 dimes, or 2 half-dollars.
You can see right here this packaging around the bill that I'm holding up. Just like coins, paper money can be professionally certified.
Sure, yeah, a lot of people like to get them certified. Number one, they get a little bit more protection, so you can do things like this. And just like a coin, if you're doing this, you're probably hurting the value. If you're doing it with a currency, the currency has a tendency to absorb your oils from your hands. So if you're taking it in and out of a holder like this on a regular basis, sometimes you'll see little stains where the grease from your hand actually gets on it, because it will absorb body fluids on your note. So try to handle them a little bit carefully. And then with professional certification, this is PMG, which is NGC's version of Paper Money Guarantee Corporation, and they're great holders.
And let's talk about the grading scale. This big number in the right-hand corner, like coins, are paper money on a scale of 0 to 70.
Exactly. A good is a 4. A very good is an 8 or a 10. Goes up to, in this case, it's what is that? That's a very fine 35. So that means it's almost extra fine.
Mm-hmm. With a little EPQ for excellent paper quality here. And when grading paper money, they're looking for significant creases. If someone folded it in half in the tri-folds, if the corners are really bent and wore down, maybe if someone had thumbtacked it, little pinholes up against a wall, if it really got worn, if the wears start creating holes in it as well.
Yep, exactly. I mean, the currency, as it wears, every little, like this is a 64. In this case, it's a choice uncirculated 64. This has no creases at all. All it takes is one little corner crease, like Hannah said, and it becomes about uncirculated. One big crease across the middle of it, and it can't be any higher than extra fine. So it depends whether that crease breaks the ink. So there could be a crease, but it doesn't break the ink. So it's very sophisticated also, just like grading coins. Very much, very similar, but yet different.
So all these big, beautiful notes were the late 1800s, and they have a lot of beautiful artwork, collectible. So if you have something like this and you're curious about the value, bring it on in. Like he said, all dependent on condition as well. But moving on to more common stuff, the sizes that we start seeing, like what might be in your wallet right now, you might have heard of a silver certificate here. And like he said, you could go and trade it in for the bank. What we are looking for is the series number on the bottom right underneath the seal, the series from 1935 and from 57. And then right here, these ones that I have are that really, really crisp note. The rule of thumb with silver certificates, we usually say, is if there's pen marking on it, someone put a check mark or they wrote, "To you, love me," kind of thing, usually they're going to be spendable still. Same thing if there's a big tear on it. They didn't appreciate very much.
Yeah, we call these ones like this size, we call this modern size or small size currency. These larger ones a lot of people use the term horse blanket. So they're called horse blanket or large size notes. It all depends on condition. Like this one, literally we call a rag. It's still there. See how limp that thing is? It's just barely holding together. I could probably just pull this and almost pull it apart. It's really seen a lot of circulation. And obviously the condition on this, if this were a coin, this is probably a good or about good condition. It's so circulated and mutilated, almost mutilated, but there's no pieces missing. Mm-hmm. So it's still all complete.
You might see one that looks a lot like the dollars in your pocket here, but with a brown seal, and it says Hawaii, little bitty there, and all the way on the back. What's the story with a Hawaiian note?
Well, shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, of course, our government went into full panic mode, and they were truly worried that Hawaii would be overrun and invaded and occupied by the Japanese. So an emergency basis, they overprinted regular U.S. currency with the term Hawaii on there, so that in case of an actual invasion, they could just say all the Hawaii notes are no longer valid in the United States. So they overprinted them, and yeah, they were quite scared at the time.
And those are always what's printed last on a note, everything else. And then last but not least is that little seal and the serial number. And that's why it's easy to have it brown instead of the traditional, at the time, blue there.
Yeah, in the case of the Hawaii notes, they're a lot of fun and they're very collectible. And people say, wait, it's dated 1935. How could that be when the bombing of Pearl Harbor was 1941? So did they anticipate that? No, they didn't. The series of the notes are not the year that the note was made. Not like coins. Every year the coin is made, 32, 33, 34, 35, whatever. That is the year of manufacture. In the case of currency, that is not the case. Well, they only change the series, and this is 35A, when there is either a Secretary of the Treasury or the Treasurer of the United States changes. So if the Treasurer stays the same and the Secretary of Treasury for 5 years, they don't bother to change that.
Mm-hmm. And so that's a harder part about knowing how old your paper money is as well, because if they really liked working together for a long time, then they produced, years and years and years with the same series number on it. And then one last thing I wanted to show you all today is just kind of fun, modern, just kind of comical notes. So right here, you can see right there, that's not George Washington on the bill. What happened here is someone literally took a sticker, thump, right on top of that note. It's just a dollar bill. You see ones with Santa Claus, with, dead presidents, all kinds of stuff. But those here, especially the green seal in 1963, that's just a dollar.
Yeah, so those fall also under the novelty category. So in summary, the first notes are continental currency. And then the United States started making notes, both the United States and the Confederacy, approximately the same time, the large size notes. We started with greenbacks, made national currency, United States notes, I think it's legal tender notes, later on silver certificates and gold certificates. And then most recently, Federal Reserve notes. We changed from the large size to the small size.
And then with the small size here, you can see right at the center on the top, that's when it says silver certificate or Federal Reserve note.
So, but currency is a lot of fun. You get a lot of historical figures on there, whether it's McKinley or George Washington or Martha Washington. You get the ones with buffaloes on them or Indians.
Beautiful artwork.
A lot of Civil War generals.
Yeah.
So they're pretty cool notes. And they're a lot of fun, and a lot of people have never seen them. So impress your friends and relatives with some of these.
And as always, have fun collecting. Whatever you like out of here, that's up to you.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of people even like collecting counterfeits. Even some of the counterfeits are very collectible, as long as you know you're buying a counterfeit or a souvenir note.
As always, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions or want to see something else in a video, it doesn't have to be about paper money, leave us a question below in the comments section, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care. Bye.